Welcome to the call. I'm Raymond Doran, and Barb and I are master coordinators from sunny and very, very warm Arizona. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, or maybe your guest, this is our monthly OPA call. These calls are hosted by the Master Coordinator organization that began with Mary and Gary Loomis and continued and actually grown under their son, Rob. So OPA stands for Organic Products Associates. That's the name the Loomises gave their business organization, because they knew even in the early days that the Shaklee business would grow beyond the place where people would know the names of the early masters and mentors, and and they wanted to create a legacy for the family as well. So we're very proud of this OPA organization. A little bit about it: we have 11 master coordinators in OPA. Includes 2 presidential masters, approximately 300 business leaders, and more than 60,000 members comprise the organization, and that's 5% of over 5% of all of Shaklee North America. So a little bit about OPA. That's an organization that we can all be proud of. By the way, this call is being recorded and is archived on the website called OPA Stuff, STUFF.org. So if some of your people could not be on the call tonight, you can send them to opastuff.org and they can listen to it, or maybe you just want to listen to it yourself. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Barb, who's going to introduce our very, very good friend and very special guest for this evening. Barb.
Thank you. We're just thrilled to have Marty on. He's been on with us before when we hosted, and it's just a treat. We got to know him fairly well a number of years ago when both he and Ray were serving on the Masters Executive Committee. And he and his wife Lynn are just so much fun to be around. And one thing I admire about Marty so much too, and those of you who've heard him on other calls or who know him personally, he is so natural when he speaks to people, and he is so comfortable with asking questions, just regular questions that get people started, and in complimenting them on who they are and what they're about, and getting their ideas so that he can understand if there's something that Shaklee can help them with, that there's something that perhaps they have to talk to beyond just getting to know each other. And when we were in Chicago, a bunch of us were in Chicago, about 140 of us in February, with Dr. Keso from Malaysia. Marty was one of the presenters, and he talked about fear. And, fear is something that we all deal with. It's, it never goes away. It's always there in some way, shape, or form. And his talk that day was, I think, one of the most, if not the most, other than Dr. Keso's, favorite talks that was given. And I thought that it might be a really good idea if you had a chance to hear that too, and then have access afterwards when it's posted on opastuff.org. So Marty, you can tell your story. You can do whatever you'd like to do. I'll let you take it away and we'll go from there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Barb. You guys are pretty special. I really enjoy coming on and sharing things with you guys. All of you that are on board here, I think we're going to have fun tonight. We're going to do something maybe a little different than you're used to, but I just have to apologize ahead of time because my granddaughter gave me a little cold and I lost my voice Friday. So now if I'm hacking or whatever in between, at least you'll know I wasn't out doing something I shouldn't have been. So, all right. How many recognize this mountain? Anybody? This is Denali from Alaska. And the point is, have you ever heard of anyone talk about climbing a mountain? And I'm sure we've all heard people talk about that and getting to the top. And maybe it was you. I know it was me. But there's always a lot to talk, a lot of talk that goes around when people want to do something. However, talking about it and then doing it, those are two different things. Well, how many people of you want to go to the top of Shaklee? How many of you want to go to the top of Shaklee? I mean, you could raise your hand, okay? This is a little different than doing it in front of an audience where I can't see everybody, but I'll just pretend I see one out there. But okay, how many of you really, really want to go to the top? How many of you have decided to go to the top in Shaklee? There you go. Okay, so are you ready to climb the mountain? Well, everybody has to start somewhere. So this poor cat here, at the top. I mean, there's things that we have in our baggage, obviously, but we must deal with the biggest hurdle that there is. So we're going to talk about something that's a little different. And the topic we're going to talk about is fear. Now, has anyone ever experienced this? Anybody? Okay. So talking about the elephant in the room can be a challenge. And I'd like to venture to say that fear is the number one reason why we hear a no. And why do we hear these no's? The challenge is that people say no, which typically is the first thing that comes to mind out of habit or conditioning, because it's a self-preservation thing to protect themselves, because it's easy to say no, right? I'm not interested in ever hearing that. Have you ever heard that statement? I'm not interested. Okay. Sure, we've all heard that. And how to deal with that is another topic. But the second reason we feel fear is people get started and no gets in the way. And it affects your growth. People start all excited, and then you see them stop. And you wonder what happened. Have any of you ever seen anybody start and then stop? Well, the problem is that they never get into momentum, and these people typically struggle, and they never grow because they get their business big enough that they can get this momentum going, and then they don't stick with it. It's sort of like when they climb to the mountain and they could almost see the top, but they never go over the top to come downhill and really make it happen. And they stop reaching for their dreams. And this is a challenge. So we have to deal with this thing up front. So what is this thing, fear? If people don't feel this, if we didn't feel this, we wouldn't be able to protect ourselves from legitimate threats and physical, emotional danger. It's important that we have this as part of our life, because anybody here ever feel and felt rejection? We all have, okay? So did you know that fear of rejection is one of our deepest human fears? Now, I always heard that public speaking was next. I'd rather be dead, okay? And I've experienced that. But a big part of our fear of rejection may be our fear of experiencing hurt and pain. And some of that comes from fear of failure. How about that? Has anybody ever felt that? How about fear of success? All these things literally stop people. How about fear of loss, fear of reputation and self-damage, fear of making a decision? For example, if a relationship fails, this doesn't mean that we are a failure. When we hear fear, it simply means we haven't decided. So deciding, that's key to succeed no matter what. Deciding to succeed no matter what. All things begin with that decision. And that's a tough thing to do. Anyone here know what this acronym stands for? Well, it means false evidence appearing real. I'm sure others have other definitions, but fundamentally, what are the first two words? False evidence. And what does that mean? False. It's not true. Why would you let something that's false dictate your future? Think about that. Think about what we need to deal with. Fear will rule your self-talk. It literally will make you immobilized. It will immobilize your attitude. It will immobilize your thinking, and it will affect your body language. And body language is to be known, about 85% of our body language is communication. So that's going to affect your actions. And every time you leave a Zoom or an event, you may feel excited. You may want to move forward, but think about it. Imagine a boat, and you're going to get in a boat. You're going to go for the boat ride. You got control, and you throw that throttle down. You put the metal to the pedal, but you're going nowhere. You're churning and burning. And the reason is you've got a line tied to your lack of decision or your anchor in the shoreline. And until you deal with that and overcome that and get into healthy thinking, fear is going to rule you. Now, this frog's interesting because other people's fears can literally be a teacher and an encouragement for you. So you can't be afraid of it. You have to sort of embrace it in that. And this basically says the frog decided to reach the top of the tree, and all the frogs shouted, "It's impossible. It's impossible." Still, the frog reaches the top. How? Because he was deaf. He thought that everyone encouraging him to reach the top. Be deaf to negative thoughts if your aim is to reach your goals. Listen for those things. Every adversity has an equivalent or greater benefit. So you want to put your hearing up. I learned a long time ago to be a duck. Okay, duck feathers, when it rains or pours, the water rolls off your back. I don't let any negatives and any of that stuff stick to me. I don't let it change my focus on where I want to go. So that brings me to an interesting thing, a little bit of feeling about this. There's a parable called the parable of the nobleman in Scripture. And I think it teaches us, in our case, what fear can do for us if we allow it. It's about a king, and the king has 3 slaves, and he's getting ready to go on a trip. And he tells them when he returns, he's going to ask them, the slaves, what he's done with the money. What's the money in our case? The money is our gift of shackling. And he's going to want to know how much they earn through their trading. Trading in our world, it's seeing the people. So the first thing that came before him, the king said, "Sir, your mina has made me 10 minas more." So this first slave says, "Hey, we did good. We got 10 more. Well, if you don't know what a mina is, comes from the first century, it means 60 shekels. It's about $16.50 today. Okay. So the king said to him, "Well done, good slave, because you've been faithful." What's the faith that he was doing? Faithfulness. He did the work. And in a very small matter, what's a small matter? He did it with consistent effort. He said, "You'll have authority over 10 cities. Think about it. What rank has 10 first levels? Ray? I can read his lips. He says,
Presidential master.
there you go. Perfect. Now, if you don't know, you can't get started there. An old saying goes, out of sight is out of mind. So it's important to be the cat and not the cat on top. We all started somewhere, and somewhere, this is what fear might look like inside. But we all grow, and events like today can arm you with some tools to build your confidence, to reach your dreams. Dr. Shackley said this a long time ago. I remember this is before I even started Shackley. What you think you look, what you think you do, what you think you are. What did he say? He said, I didn't hear it. Think. Okay. What's the word? Think. Until you apply that and understand that and make it part of your makeup, there's going to be a challenge. So let's break it down. Attitude. Attitude's everything. Attitude determines your altitude. This is the leadership and relationship business. And ask yourself, would you follow you? That's a tough question. All you got to do is look in the mirror. If you got a question about that, don't give up. Don't ever give up. You can work on it. You can grow. This is the biggest thing, though, we need to grow on. Confidence. If you work on it, it will change your whole future. You see, fear is basically fueled by a lack of confidence. Confidence is liberating. It's easy to share when you are given a gift. And what's our gift? Our gift of shackling. So people will buy you first. So remember, your body language, 85% of your communication. When your head and your heart are congruent, your body language is going to reveal that confidence. So confidence is built when you have understanding. understand what you have. How many of you have read the Shaklee story? How about thoughtsmanship? How about the Shaklee difference? When you understand that, no one can steal this from you. Okay. The other thing is personal improvement. If you haven't read this, get the 4-year career. If you want to understand this business model, that's a great book that shows the power behind it. And you can't lose when you understand what you have. Another book I recommend is Atomic Habits. There's a real thing about this, about habits. You don't change behavior. You want to create new behavior. And when you apply the new behavior consistently, you'll build habits that will lead you on a path towards success. And if you monitor it daily and analyze it, you'll be able to see the things where you need to improve upon. Other bottom line thing you need to get is Questions Are the Answers by Ellen Pease. When you learn how to ask questions and listen, you're going to be able to help people move to where they want to go, their dreams, including yourself. All this boils down to belief. Belief is built on when you nurture it. And the best way to build belief is, one, use the products. Dr. Shaklee said, use the products. And then he said, go see the people. When you understand the Shaklee difference through using the products, no one can stop you. There's nothing out there like it. Now, Shakleeizing your home is key. How many of you Shakleeized your home? Think about it. When I was first introduced, there were no leaders around. There were no meetings. There were no tapes. There was no Zooms. None of this existed. So I basically had to read in the manual. But the one thing that I understood about that is that I learned in the manual that there was an opportunity. So what was I going to do? I believe that I wasn't going to sell pencils. I wasn't going to sell golf balls. Okay. I was going to sell Shaklee and share Shaklee. So I needed to get all the non-Shaklee stuff out of the house. So anything that Shaklee could replace, I put in a box and I took it over to my neighbor. I knocked on the door. He had 6 kids and he looked at the door and he saw the box. I said, this is for you. And he goes, oh my God. He says, I was just going to go shopping. In fact, he was flipping and looking through the stuff. And he goes, I was going to need this and this and this. He says, come on in, let's have some tea. So we started talking and he was looking through the box and he thanked me and thanked me and thanked me. And then he stopped and he looked at me, why are you giving me this? And I looked down and I whispered, I got something better. He said, oh my goodness. And he pushed it aside, show me what you got. And the box literally went down the street. So you never know what you're going to do. But when you commit and you decide and Shakleeize your life, I mean, things start coming your way. Secondly, always come from a position of strength. The strength in Shaklee is unequaled. Think about it. Who has a philosophy of in harmony with nature and everything must benefit itself or not harm itself? Think about it. Who has a 67-year history and all the trappings and history behind it and the story that we have? Nobody. People come to me with, well, how's Shaklee compared to brand X? I tell them, I said, well, you're asking the wrong question. How does your product compare to the 67-year history that Shaklee has and being the leader in the world? I mean, it's unique. We have something very unique. And it all begins with seeing the people. So I want to, and I skipped ahead a little bit here. Bear with me. I get so excited, my fingers start rolling here. Okay. This is longer than I thought. Here's a good question. Has any of you ever experienced what you might call failure? Failure is there for a reason. It's there for you. It's there to build your character. It's there to educate you and help you learn. I remember a long time ago, I met a fella and someone in the audience asked him, he said, how do you make so much money? And he said, I failed 67% of the time. What did you hear there? Did you hear 67%? You know what I heard? 33%. That meant that if I talked to 100 people, 33 were going to say yes at some level. I knew I couldn't fail in this business. Belief and confidence only get stronger when you step outside your box. If you're afraid and you have butterflies in your stomach, it's time to step outside the box and go for it. I remember I had never spoken before a group before, and I was going to this regular weekly or monthly meeting, and it was a soup and salad. And my sponsor says, would you speak at the next one? And I said, sure. And I learned that because I listened to somebody that said, if anybody asks you to do something, say yes, and then figure it out. So I said, sure. And this soup and salad had maybe had 30, 40 people in it most, and I knew all of them. So it was easy peasy. So I figured, okay. So I showed up to go in and I walk into the room, there's nobody in there. And I come out and I'm looking around, and this is in a school, and I see a janitor, and I says, where's the soup and salad that's in there every week? And he says, well, they're down there in the gymnasium. So I walk down and I open the doors, and there's 1,000 people in the room. And a lady I was married to at the time, she looks at me and she goes, oh my God, you're going to crash and burn. They put me between a master coordinator and Zig Ziglar. Opportunity. I mean, what a chance and an opportunity to grow. So you just take it and you run with it, right? So what's your thinking? What's your why? That's when growth begins to occur. Excuse me. So you simply just, if you get a challenge, you just brush yourself off, let the water roll off your back, and you just do it over and over again. So you watch for these things that are going to help you grow. And here's a good question. What's your why? Do you fear a no? Is your why so strong that no will deter you? Can you say that? Literally, can you say that? If you can, all you got to do is start studying. Oh, Barbara. Okay. So you go to more meetings, you listen to more tapes, you get some content, you get some coaching, you get some support, and you just work on it. You know what happens? Is you get better. A no can stop you in your tracks. I had a sister, and I had built this house in the middle of 50 acres of woods. I bought 8 acres with my Shackley check, and 15 months later, we moved into this house. And I had my new Shackley car sitting outside, and I invited all the family to come up and go to dinner. Well, they all showed up, and as they trickled in, there's my sister. So I gave her a hug and a kiss. First words out of her mouth, she says to me, when are you going to get a real job? What do you do with that? I basically told her, go, the food's in the kitchen, go in there. So I could have stopped. I could have let it affect me. So you want to take this opportunity to grow. In the beginning, when I started, we used to have a thing called the 3-foot rule. And so anybody got near me got Shackley. And I had this brother, this fraternity brother that I had earmarked that I thought would be really good in the business, and I wanted him to be on my team. And so I badgered him, and I talked to him. Every time I saw him, he got Shackley. So he calls me up and says, Mark, come up and help me move. So we go up there, and I'm helping him unload the tractor or load up the truck, and I get it half full. And I stopped and I said, why are you moving? Or where are you moving to? He says, I'm going to California. I said, why are you moving there? He says, to get away from you. That was the most pivotal lesson I ever got, because it taught me I needed to grow up. I needed to learn to listen and ask questions. Oh man, I thought I had this in the bag. Sorry, guys. Okay, so how do you see Shackley? I want you to seriously take a look at this and think about this. Do you see your business as a gift? Is your head and your heart congruent? Or do you see it as a gig? It's going to impact your path. We have something that's so special that it impacts people's lives. How many of you have had it impact your lives? Think about it. How has Shackley impacted your life? And here's the main question I love to ask new people, is that if you found something that changed your life and you knew it could change the life of others, would you keep it to yourself? I've never gotten a no on this, because it's very important. That head and that heart, when it's congruent, people buy you first. And this is where fear will come, and it will shrink this. You see, people buy you. People want to trust and follow someone who knows where they're going. Even if you don't understand this thing 100%, if you know that there's a master coordinator out there, or there's a lady out there that made master coordinator, somebody's done it. How many of you believe that you can go to the top? And I always thought if they can do it, I can do it. So do you believe you have a responsibility to share this? There's your head and heart again. The fundamental reality of this business is that it's a relationship and a leadership business. If your head is online to move towards about thinking about becoming a leader and working hard to understand and help others become leaders, you can walk through this sales plan. You can make it happen. Overcoming fear starts with that decision. Then it begins by choosing healthy, realistic thinking. The reality of success in our company is founded in this business. But fear of being leaders stops many people in their paths. If you have fear of being a leader or developing and growing in that area, go talk to your mentor. Go talk to a coach. Go find a solid leader and have a serious discussion with them and work it out. You're going to grow. In teaching, when I worked with a lot of kids, I learned a lot of people can learn. My mother used to tell me, show up in class because you can learn by osmosis. If you go there over and enough, you're going to start absorbing it, okay? All of you were smart enough to get involved in Shaklee. You're smart enough to get on presentations like this to learn and grow from and take those nuggets and help you go down your path. You all have that capability. When I started building my business, we all had influencers like key people we found to be mentors who help us and move along. And there was one particular gentleman that really impacted my thinking. He impacted my business, and I came truly admire him for his wisdom and insight. His name was Gary Burke. And I want to share a little bit about what he shared with us. And I'm going to read some of this, and then I'm going to interject a little bit. But basically, he said that leadership is what you are paid for in Shaklee. So what do you want to be? You want to develop those leadership skills. That sentence may sound odd for many people working this business, and that's because many fail to realize that those who have the greatest success in our business are those who have built large organizations because they developed their leadership skills. Such organizations are built by this leadership, not salesmanship. Not that there isn't any of that. We all have. If you're a mom and you have children, you're a born salesman. Think about it, it's natural. The next step may be about experiencing what a leader is and how to become one. But it may seem logical. It's not always that simple. Now, what's meant to be practical and concrete, step-by-step guidelines, and we're looking for those widgets, may aid in building some of the large organizations, and it may be looked at as it's as real as brick walls, but really there's a lot of subtle smoke there. So what's the difference? As an example, what's the difference between a true musician and merely a technician playing the piano? Think about it. What's the difference between a team loaded with lots of talent, perhaps one against a team with less talent, but that team has more spirit and more dedication? I mean, just think about the team that won gold in 1980. It's called Miracle Team. It's unreal. What's the difference between a true musician and playing the piano? Well, word defines the difference between someone doing a job or pastime that they love. One who's merely has to show up, and one who really, I mean, are you excited about your Shaklee business enough you can't wait to go to sleep so you can wake up in the morning and get going? I mean, I've been there. I've had a case at a Shaklee's for a long time. And leadership, it's such a phenomenon. When the elusive quality of leadership is present, we know it, we feel it. I mean, walk into a room with a bunch of masters and that's your first time there, you're going to feel it, because people who are able to accomplish more, they tend to do different feats beyond their own thinking. And they develop these leadership skills where it might have been lacking initially, but because they stepped outside of the box, they got better at it. Leadership is how we become a leader. Tracing a step-by-step course may help you get started. But really, it's the feeling that's really going to help you move forward. I mean, Gary Berg talked about the thing where there was one thing where you could cut out the paper outlines and actually put them on the floor. And the suggestion was that if you followed each steps, you can learn how to dance. But moving your feet is a lot different on the outside than what dancers do who really feel the music from the inside. They're made of rhythm and coordination and grace. And we've all watched dancers and ballet dancers and that. I mean, it's amazing to watch them because they have that feeling in that. So can a person learn to be a leader? Well, either you have it or you don't. You probably thought about that. It's not true. If you don't, you just can't build a successful business. That's not true. Obviously, it's about what's inside us that we want, that is going to drive us force to take those things that we are lacking in and develop skill sets in. So what are we saying? Deepening the quality of leadership in ourselves takes more than just follow the cutoffs. Okay, there's no widget out there. And you generally begin to continue your work in this business. You may experience change internally. It's going to start taking place in you. And someone else is even going to notice it. When I started in Shaklee, I had someone 4 months later tell me that, hey, you look different. In fact, he said to me, he said, you look so different. I even like you now. So, I mean, there's things in there that are going to be happening in you. Leaders aren't just any old person. That's why they're leaders. They're people willing to get out of their box, to get out and lead, to take a stand, to be different, to voice their opinion, to follow up with creative action. Gary said there was a thing called a word that was expressed that was essential, that the Greeks called the quality of leadership. It was called arete. And when I heard that word, I tell you, it was Greek to me until I learned its meaning: the pursuit of personal excellence. So what's that? Leaders don't lead because they want the glory of leadership, but simply because it's how they live. I mean, it's not about perfection. It's about working toward excellence. There's large stones. Example, imagine these large stones at the top of the hill, you're looking up, and all of a sudden they start rolling down, and they hit other stones, and they bring those stones with them. So I remember Roland talking about a young man who was standing on the beach. There was all kinds of people around, but not near him. And he had a boom box, and he pressed it, and he started dancing. Well, he did this for a while, for it seemed like a long while. And all of a sudden, one other person came in and started dancing with him. Then there was a third person, then 5, then 10, and all of a sudden, everybody was dancing. So this is sort of what happens when you start developing these leadership skills. Like attracts like. You start bringing in your vision, your passion, your commitment, your decision, and mostly you start leading by example, and people start following you. So the key to all this, the bottom line to all this, is ditch the fear, make that decision, become a leader, and your future, as Dr. Shaklee said, excuse me, will be exactly what you decided to make it. It's up to you. I made it. Wow. I didn't think I was going to get to do it. It's great.
Great job, Marty.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's powerful.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Maybe fears that you've had, that you've overcome, or fears that you have now that you're not sure how to overcome? Something that you've run up against? Anything like that?
Nobody has any fear.
Nobody. No.
Here.
You know, I heard or I saw where Eric Worre, some of you know who he is. He does seminars in Las Vegas, has for many years. And there are some that I have attended many times. But he says, when your determination and your dreams are bigger than your fears, then you become unstoppable. And that's what Marty was talking about tonight.
So
It's,
can they name one thing that's maybe slowing their growth or inhibiting their growth, or a wall they're having challenges with getting over?
yeah, unmute, tell us one thing that is holding you back.
Marty, since I got back from Chicago, my sister and I have had to move in with my mother to take care of her 24/7.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, there's an old saying, God, family, shackling. Keep your priorities in order. And I think if you do that, it's called balance. And you never regret it.
Yeah. That's right, Tammy.
And wouldn't be able to if I worked a regular job.
Right,
You know, it would be much more challenging.
yeah. And
So
it's been,
Shackley's giving you a gift to be able to have some of that time with your mom. There you go.
yeah.
Thank you, Lord.
11 or 12 years ago, my mom moved in with us for 7 or 8 months before she died. And it was just the neatest thing to have her there. You know, we gave her a choice. Where would you like to be? Would you like to be in like a home someplace? Or would you like to be here with us? And she said, I'd really like to be with you. And so Ray and I took care of her. And she was on hospice a good part of that time. She actually was getting better, so they took her off hospice, and then that turned around. But it was the neatest thing to be able to know that we had that time with her. So I understand where you're coming from, and you will be happy you're there, even though it's a struggle sometimes.
Well, it was a struggle because we were really starting to get some momentum, but the Lord promotes us when we're ready.
Mhm.
You know, Joseph didn't get out of that prison till the time was right to go to the palace. So this season is what it is. And you know, Dr. Queso said for every circumstance, look for the blessing, or love every circumstance for what will happen. So there's something you can learn in every season. And again, it's a blessing to be able to do this and still get a paycheck every month.
That's right.
That's right.
You know, with every adversity comes an equivalent of greater benefit. I sold our house in Illinois. We moved down to Alabama. We were 2 hours outside of Alabama, and I got a call from the attorney that the people who bought the house breached the contract. So now the house had to go back on the market. Now, I had the freedom to make the move, and I didn't have to worry about the economics because now you got double payments. Okay, so we got the house. It took a year. But you know what it did? It gave me time because I made a list of the house that we wanted. And we spent a year and a half looking. We found the house that we wanted with everything in it plus more. Then COVID hit. And I told my son when I came down here, he's got 3 kids, he had a newborn. He says, Dad, come to help. I said, well, we're not going to be nannies. I said, if you want to get a break or you want dinner, you want to go away for a night, we'll do that. Well, COVID hits. I haven't used an alarm clock in 50 years. I'm getting up at 6 in the morning, going over and meeting him at the daycare while he's dropping off the other 2 to pick up the baby and bringing him home. We had to do that for a year. Shackley gave me the freedom to be able to do that and help him out. You know, so, and this business is easier to do quicker than it is to do slower. Get some momentum going, I'll tell you, single rock for you.
I just want to mention that today is Tammy's birthday also.
Oh,
yeah, right. Yeah. Yes.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tammy.
Happy birthday.
So this day was tailor-made.
Ooh.
Creative group. I love it. Any other questions?
Somebody else, what's holding you back?
Me, Lou. Yeah, saying the wrong thing to the person when I start a conversation and calling them up.
Okay. So you call them back up and say, I have to apologize. Because when I talked to you before, I said the wrong thing. And I appreciate it if you give me the opportunity to say the right thing. People are very gracious. And we're all human, right?
Yeah.
It's where excellence comes in, not perfection.
And we don't have to be perfect to do
No.
this business.
In fact, we're not going to be perfect.
No.
Who else?
Anyone else?
I have a comment. Can you hear me okay?
Your turn.
Yes.
Yeah, so I heard one time that where there is no fear, there is no courage. So when you face the fear, it gives you an opportunity then to be courageous and do the things that need to be done. So I thought that was an interesting concept. And I heard a guy today talk, he was a Navy SEAL, and he was talking about how whenever no matter what happened, his commanding officer would always say, good. Even if it was something bad, if somebody got injured, good, no, we just got to move on from there. So those were encouraging things because, yeah, you always feel when something goes bad, you feel bad about it, but it's a better attitude to feel good about it and say, well, even if you got a rejection, to say, well, good, I had the strength and the courage to talk to that person today. So those are my thoughts anyway. But yeah, I'm afraid of everything.
Sometimes you have to punt. And before I married my wife, I had invited her to a meeting, sit around a table with a couple other couples. And everyone had to go around and introduce themselves. And she's very shy. And she almost came to tears just when she had to introduce her name and that. And then I started asking her how the products were working. And everyone was sort of sharing something. She says, well, I hate to be honest, but I'm not feeling very good. And of course, what do you do with that? I said, well, that's good. She thought I was nuts. And I says, Doc Sheckley said, when you start cleaning house, you're going to raise some dust. Stick with it and go to full 4 weeks. And lo and behold, by the 4th week, the lights went on. It was like a different.
Yeah. And what if Marty hadn't said yes too, that he was going to speak at that meeting? He didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but oftentimes somebody will ask us to do something like that. And our first thing is, oh no, I'm not good enough, or I couldn't possibly do it, or they wouldn't appreciate what I have to say. I don't have enough to say, or the right thing to say. And yet he got to speak between a master coordinator and Zig Ziglar. And wow. And those of you who know who Zig Ziglar was, he was a phenomenal man, motivational speaker who was just wonderful. Had him in my car one time when he was speaking here in Phoenix at a Shackley thing. And I got to take him to his friend's home where he was staying. And what an opportunity. Neat man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so much to learn from him too. I mean, the
Mhm.
wisdom, common sense.
Yeah.
I have another thought.
What's that?
So I also heard today, I do a lot of listening, that, Lou said something about a fear of saying the wrong thing. Well, if you say the wrong thing enough times, eventually you'll start saying the right things. And his point was, just keep doing it so many times that you can't do it wrong. So that was an encouragement to just stick with it.
Sometimes the understanding comes out in saying the wrong thing and you start defining it better and you say, aha.
Yeah, very good. Kelly, you had your hand up. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, I did.
Go ahead.
I think what holds me back the worst is feeling like I don't have a good system, a good daily consistent system, something that I can follow, and I put things together and then I don't keep it exactly, and then I put things off. And you made a comment, monitor daily and analyze things for yourself to improve, and you will improve. Can you explain that and just maybe talk about little details?
Well, first of all, a thing called KISS. Keep it simple, right? Secondly, ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now moving me toward my goal? And if it isn't, we have ABC priorities, right? So you want to have an 80-20 type thing going where 80% is the A priority and the other 20% is divided between the other two. I mean, when the garbage is got to be taken out, that's boom, got to do it. When the bill's got to be paid, you got to do it. But outside of that, for the rest of the month, it's a C priority, right? So, but the A priority in this business is use the products, see the people. So when you're inviting people to take a look, you're doing things that are going to grow your business. When you get in that interaction with that person and you help educate them, you're building stability, you're building longevity. And when you teach them or help them, if they're willing to share it with other people they think could benefit from them, then you're going to start building depth. And your focus has to be, because that's what builds the business, that's what's going to bring the income. Make sense?
And you know, when we talk about the gift of Shackley too, and the longevity in this business, some of you have heard me talk about, we have in our organization a 93-year-old woman that I met almost 50 years ago on my aunt's sofa in her living room. And in November, December, I checked in on her because I do that periodically, and I called her and she didn't answer the phone. And I left a message, but a couple hours later, I decided to call back. And she's, oh, Barb, I'm so sorry that I didn't answer. She says, I was out raking leaves. And she said, it's from my neighbor's tree. And she says, and I have to rake the leaves. Her husband has been gone a long time, so she takes care of herself. She lives by herself. She doesn't order monthly. She orders probably 3-4 times a year, but a good amount of stuff. And she is so sharp. And she sounds just like she sounded when I first met her, those 40 plus, almost 50 years ago in my aunt's living room. She's got a great sense of humor. She doesn't take herself so seriously like an awful lot of us do, much of the time. And she's just a delight to be around. And so if we have gifts that we can give someone like that, who can have a quality of life that they wouldn't have had otherwise, and then can reach out to other people, what an advantage we have.
And that's one thing you're going to do. You're going to collect a whole bunch of thank yous from people that their lives have been impacted and changed.
Yeah, I have a file folder that I've kept for years. And when people write notes like that, I stick them in that folder. And periodically I'll get them out and I'll look at them. So maybe it's a thank you note or a card or an email or something else. And it just reinforces all the neat things that Dr. Shackley gave us that we have the ability to share with other people. And, what if somebody hadn't shown Shackley to you? They hadn't talked to Shackley about Shackley to you. Where would you be today? Health-wise, financially, friendship-wise, the community of friends that we build around ourselves as a result of the relationships that we build. Whether or not somebody makes a decision to move forward in Shackley, we have wonderful friends all over the place. And a lot of people can't say that.
Yeah. One of the other things that Marty talked about was consistency.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it, Kelly, when you were talking about, what stops me or what happens. It's a lot of times we're just not consistent. We'll get going
and we start building a little bit of momentum, and then
for whatever reason, life will happen and we will take off and not work our business and it'll go down, and then we'll get back. We only do it one or 2 days a week instead of 4 or 5 days a week. So consistency is so important in this business, that you're consistent. And I thought that was one of the things that Morty talked about that was really important.
Yeah. How do you see your business? As a gig or a gift?
Right.
Gifts are amazing that we're given. We don't even know what we're going to do as far as impacting people's lives. My first distributor was a fellow that I grew up from age 5. And I called him up when I decided to do the business. I said, send me a check. He goes, okay. So I joined. So he worked for the airlines and he was out on the tarmac all the time. So he's breathing all that stuff. So we got him on a bunch of nutrition. He's doing that. And he retired at age 65. When he was a kid, he had scarlet fever, so he had a valve problem. And at age 65, he had to go in for surgery. And they did the surgery and he came home. And 2 days later, he's feeling really bad. So he calls and the doctor says, get back in here immediately. And they found out it was infected. So they said, we got to go in and we got to redo it. But there's a problem. He says, if I send you home, you're dead. If I do the surgery on a scale of 1 to 10, he said that you're an 11, you're dead. So he looks at his wife and he goes, well, we don't need to flip the coin. It's definite if I go home, we'll take a chance here, roll the dice here. So when he wakes up in the room, there's 8 or 9 doctors in there. They're all talking about it. And he wakes up and his doc comes over and says, true story. He goes, oh my God. He says, we've never seen a man at your age with heart and lungs and veins and arteries of a 20-year-old. He says, that Shakely stuff you've been taking, he says, don't ever stop. That was 9 years ago, still going strong. My first distributor. You never know whose life you're going to impact. That's the gift.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this
Jeannie
is really,
here.
is that somebody else?
Yeah, hi there, Ray and Barb. Jeannie Wise here.
Hi,
Hi.
Jeannie.
I am here. Let me turn my camera on so I don't have to, whatever. But I wanted to thank you for the reminders. When my dearest friend was dying of cancer, and it was up in Chicago and we lived in Miami at the time. And to be able to go up there and have the time, the gift of the business, and also during COVID, when our daughter and grandson had moved back, and it allowed us the freedom. And just having Jasper growing up for the first few years, couple of years on the lake with us, and just the gift. And actually, I'm preparing my 1-minute video right now. And I'm not going to use side gig. I'm going to use side gift. that's
Good.
much better, which became our plan B. It's a side gift, not a side gig. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, I like that
So
too.
thank you so much.
So awesome.
Yeah, Barb, the only thing I was going to say is, this presentation that Marty does on fear is really powerful, and it's going to be on opa-stuff.org. So if some of your people couldn't be here tonight, this is something that you might want to sit down with them and go through what we talked about here tonight. Because it's really powerful for people in your organization or new people that are coming into the business. So really, Marty, thanks. This was just great.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity to share. I love it.
Oh,
And
you're
good for our family members too, not just our
You bet. Oh,
our
absolutely, Jeannie.
people.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Thanks.
That's great.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and for Marty, with your voice, you did wonderfully. You had very few missteps. We
Thank
so appreciate that.
If you want to unmute and say.
Yeah, if you want to.
Thank you, Marty.
You certainly may do that.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Marty.
Marty. Thanks,
presentation.
Barb. Thanks, Ray.
Thank
Excellent.
Thank you.
Very
See you next
inspirational.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Uh-huh.
That's
Good
right.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.